Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast. My name is Amir. I have a special guest joining me on the pod today. He was actually on one of our episodes of the Miami Heat Roundtable. So we have Major from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. How are you doing today, Major?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. It was a really good conversation that we had. I think it was like, 6 weeks ago when you joined our show, and we're hoping that you can join the rest of the guys when we do find some availability, maybe next week or within the few weeks or
Yeah,
so.
for
And
sure.
yeah, so I wanted to have this conversation with you. We have only 8 games left remaining in the regular season, and the Miami Heat are 41 and 33, seventh seed, and we are fighting to get out of the play-in once again. And if you asked me like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I would have said we're probably destined to be a playing team after some of the losses that we had, especially against the Wizards 2 weeks ago. And after this most recent weekend, we handled business against some pretty bad teams, but the way we beat them was important, I think. So we're only half a game behind the Pacers, which is great. 2 games from the Magic, 3 from the Knicks. And I don't know why I'm starting to believe, like, for a small percent hope and chance that, like, can we get to 5 or even entertain 4? Because we have a big game tomorrow against the Knicks. If we beat them, we're only 2 games behind them in
hmm
theory. So big weekend, 60-point victory against the Blazers, 12-point victory against the Wizards. How are you feeling about the team in this final stretch? Are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling good? I mean, what are your thoughts and outlook on the Heat just for the remainder of the season and going into the playoffs?
I'll say it hasn't changed. Um, like the loss against the Wizards was terrible. I had to do a post game after that. That was brutal. Trying to, like muster up some happiness after that. So like right after the games, if you asked me then, it would probably be a little bit lower. But now I have some time to think about it. It's like, does it really change anything? No. Are they going to be the favorites? No. But do they have a chance to, shock the world and make a deep run? Yes, they have all the pieces still. And people are like, oh, it's just the Blazers. Yeah, but anytime you beat a team by 60, like it doesn't matter who you're playing. That is impressive, right? And then they turn around and win another game by like 20. And the Heat never blow out teams, and now they have back-to-back blowouts, like 3 in the past 5 games or something like that. So they're starting to do a little bit of what we thought they could do all along. So I mean, I feel about the same. I feel like they could, make the finals. I'm not saying they're going to make the finals, but I feel like they can. But yet, I still feel like they could lose in the first round depending on the matchup. And if they don't show up, that's the thing. I want to avoid the play-in. Everyone always asks, are you scared of the play-in? Do you think they can survive the play-in? Yeah, I think they can. They will be the favorite against anyone in the play-in. Maybe not the 76ers if Embiid is back and healthy and playing good. But it's just a one game, season basically. And it's who tends to lose those one games against teams that they should beat more than anyone? The Miami Heat. So I don't think my outlook on the season has changed. It's been a real frustrating and, not exactly how I'd like, but I think the Heat can still do pretty good.
Yeah. Can you imagine? So Embiid is speculated to come back this week, and if he doesn't come back tomorrow against the Thunder, he could come back on Thursday. And guess who the Sixers are playing on Thursday? They're playing the Heat. At least it's at home. But imagine though we finish the seventh seed, they still finish the eighth because Embiid is gonna be slowly coming back. I don't expect him to be playing 30 plus minutes a game. I'm sure he's gonna have some sort of minutes restriction. And honestly, I think it's kind of crazy why they're risking it at this point. Like, even with him coming back, like, do you really see them winning a championship? Can they get out of the East? That would be a miracle. Like, unless he's that good, has no rust, and can be back in his MVP form by the time the playoffs start and then throughout the playoffs. Like, I don't know why they're risking it, but wouldn't it be insane if we play them in the 7/8 game, playing game, lose to them, and then play maybe, let's say, the Bulls or even the Hawks, either one, like a DeMar DeRozan led Bulls team with Vus, who's been a Miami Heat killer, like they could beat us in a single game. And I don't know if Trae Young's coming back by then, but what's if we play against them and Trae Young and DeJounte go off, or DeAndre Hunter, who's done well against us. So um, that would be horrible spot to be in. But before you give me your thoughts, what are your thoughts though of the Heat getting the 6th seed based on the remainder schedule, based on Indiana's remaining schedule, and that head-to-head game?
I think they got a good chance to get the 6th seed. I think at minimum they will be the 6th seed. Maybe 6 or 5. I think 4 is asking a little bit too much, but technically it's in grasp. But I think at minimum they'll be the 6th. I don't trust Indiana, so that's just kind of my thoughts on that. 76ers, I do think it's interesting, but if Embiid can come back and can play, you got to let him play because that theoretically gives him a shot against anyone, right? You have the defending MVP. He's a great player, so he gives you a shot against anyone.
Oh yeah, I would put them at like the 2 or 3 seed if he never got hurt at this point, right? Like that's automatically top 4 in the East, most likely. I would say probably second, honestly, because they've pulled out some decent victories, and he's missed like what 25 games now, 30 games at this point. So that would be scary and just make the path a little bit harder, perhaps in the East for any team. But I agree with you. I think the Heat are gonna get the 6th seed. I think when I predicted in the final 10 games, the Heat would have to go 7-3, perhaps, in order to lock that up, especially winning against the Pacers when we play them next week, and hoping the Pacers lose a game or so here. But we have a pretty soft schedule. So I think so far the Heat are 2-0 in that final 10 games. And so there are games against the Rockets, who are one of the hottest teams right now, even though they just lost, against the Knicks, the Pacers, Sixers. So, and even the Mavericks. Like now that I'm thinking of it, there's like no real easy game. Like even the Raptors games, could be difficult because we're playing them twice in the same weekend. But I think we can go 7-3 in this final stretch, and I think that's good enough. And that's all I want. Like all I want is a 6 seed. I just don't want to have that playing week to worry about. Like Jimmy loves load management apparently, and he needs time off, and other players are still kind of banged up, and that 1 week of rest would be huge for the Miami Heat.
Yeah, and sorry to everyone that's watching this. I keep coughing, so you can't hear it, but you can watch me cough. So I apologize. Apologize to Amir too.
No,
But I agree with you. There's not really like too many easy games. Like on paper, they look easy, but it's kind of hard. It's the NBA. It's the end of the season. Its 2 big games are Toronto. I think their final 2 games are Toronto. And
yep.
those are actually pretty huge because they probably actually don't want to win those games. So those are probably 2 free games right there. And the reason why they don't want to win those games is because they get their pick. If it's not, I think it's top 5 or top 7, and they're right on that line.
Yep.
So they probably don't want to win those to keep their pick. So there's a good chance they throw those to Miami and we get 2 free wins right there. Those are the only 2 that I'm like, yeah, for sure they should get those. All the others have a lot of interesting factors, kind of like what you're saying. Dallas is scary right now. We play the Knicks, which is a huge game. Is everyone going to be back for that? That could be a real interesting game. I'm personally not too worried about the Knicks, but in a 1-game scenario, anyone can beat anyone. I love how the Heat are playing right now, so I would honestly take us against anyone, but I'm delusional, so it's not hard for me to take the Heat under pretty much any circumstances. So I'm not like the best, person to be like, oh, do you have faith in them? Yes, I always do. So I do think it's like interesting discussion though. More important than seeding is matchup, but I think it's stupid to try to pick your matchup. That's playing a dangerous, dangerous game. So you just kind of win games and hope it works out for you. I think if you could avoid the Bucks or obviously the Celtics, I think you're doing pretty good. So that's more so what I'm looking at of the other standings.
Yep, I agree with that. Just avoid. I'm not worried about the Bucks, but I mean, they still have. I mean, Middleton should be coming back soon, and I know he's not the same player, but his ability to hit that three in mid range
Mhm.
is huge if you're building a wall or packing the paint against Giannis. But that's also a little bit difficult, obviously. Naturally, now having Damian Lillard there spreading the floor, but I don't know. I haven't really been following them too much lately. I don't know if Middleton's been out of late. I know he's missed a ton of games, like in the 20s, 30s
Yeah.
range as well. So is he back right now? Because I know
Yeah,
that's a
he
big
just
factor.
recently came back.
Okay.
Uh, he's been playing pretty solid, at least in my opinion. Middleton he's like that perfect third guy. So, big Middleton fan.
Yeah, I agree. And Giannis, I mean, there's ways
Giannis.
you could play against him.
Yeah.
He's still an NBA champion, man. He's still a top five, top three. I don't know. He's top three, obviously. I
Yeah.
would say, um, which is crazy that he still has not developed a really reliable mid range shot or three pointer. Yet he can hit the fadeaway turnaround, wild, crazy shots every once in a while more
Yeah.
effectively than he can take a catch and shoot or standstill shot, which is just like mind boggling. But I don't want to play against that big three, like in the first round at least. Like
Yeah,
that's second
exactly.
round matchup. So let me ask you this. So again, this stretch is a lot more important now because we got the two wins that we needed out of the way against crappy
Mhm.
teams. Showed that we have the ability to show up to work finally. But I think a piece of that is we're getting a little bit healthier. Like Duncan came back, even though
Mhm.
he didn't really do much yesterday, but he still played 28 minutes, took 7 threes, hit two of them. He wasn't really like doing the distribution, like dribble handoff, playmaking, trying to attack the rim.
Yeah.
He's kind of like easing into it. But we got him back, and who else came back recently? I guess Kevin Love is back, but he's there. I don't know why Spo's waiting to put him in. I guess we have plenty of time.
Yeah, I think he's kind of like available, but not like fully ready. At least in the past game. So maybe he comes back in a game or two. The big one's Tyler Hero. Yeah.
Yeah, the big one's Tyler Hero. But before that, though, because no timeline, I expect him to come
Mhm.
back. We'll talk about that later. But Jimmy Butler. So last week missed the game against the Warriors. We don't need to go into this whole him socializing, being at the Miami Open tennis tournament and all that stuff. But he did miss that game against the Warriors, which sucked because I think if we had him, we would have had a
I think
better
that's a
shot
good
to win.
chance to win.
Yeah, we had a chance to win. Like even if we had just Duncan out there and not even Jimmy, like just inserting Duncan and Kevin Love. But like I was kind of annoyed by that. And then of course he came back and he helped us beat the Blazers and Wizards. But the Blazers game was so out of hand, like after halftime, like up by 30 something points, that he didn't really, even though he played like 28 minutes or something crazy, 30 minutes, I thought he would probably play less. He didn't have to do anything, basically, right?
No, yeah.
And then yesterday, when he was playing against the Wizards, he tried like 1.5 to 2 quarters of that game, a little to start and at the very end. So he was kind of lackadaisical, I guess, like in that game at certain points. And so one stat that Trent, my buddy, brought up is that Jimmy hasn't scored over 20 points since March 13th. And he had that famous quote, obviously, kind of like years ago when we played against the Bucks or in that playoff series. I'm stupidly locked in. He said something about it's time, like it's Jimmy time. This was like
Yeah.
10 games ago. And he just hasn't been playing great. I still have faith in playoff Jimmy, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on Jimmy? And do you think he's gonna like flip that switch now that we're playing like the Knicks and Sixers and Rockets, and this stretch is like just imperative that we need him to like be a 20-point plus scorer? What are your thoughts on Jimmy?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, do I think he's gonna flip the switch and be like that 56-point game against the Bucks? Probably not. Like, and I'm not saying, in the playoffs he might not rise to that level again, but it's hard for me to think in the regular season he's gonna take it quite to that level. I think he has a good chance to have really good games. Maybe not 20 points, but I could see him having like 18, 9, and 9 or something like that. And that's still a really good Jimmy game. The hard part with Jimmy, though, is his stats sometimes lie because he is really unselfish. And sometimes I think that is what bites him. when people talk about like superstars and stuff. But this misconception that he doesn't typically try in the regular season, it's like overblown. Because I mean, even last year he was second team All NBA. So it's not like he wasn't doing anything regular season. This year's different. It seems like after I'm not going to get into it, but after they didn't get Dame, seemed like he was just kind of, that was the starter. You know, he
Yep.
showed up on media day. I thought that was funny. I'm not really reading into that. I know other people did, but that was just fun. And then it seemed like he didn't have fun when they were actually playing. I mean, kind of dwindled off, and then things started not kind of going well. And it's just that, is Jimmy going to show up type thing today? And you'll kind of like what you talked about, even against the Wizards. He started out that game cutting. He was really energized, doing great. And we see that constantly where he starts out a game good, and then it just kind of fades as it goes. And it's not, it fades as the lead gets really high. It sometimes fades just randomly. And that's kind of the frustrating part. And not that I don't trust Jimmy, but that's why I have a hard time saying I think he will rise to that ultra, level Jimmy before it's absolutely needed. And there is no regular season game where it's absolutely needed, as unless you're fighting for literally a playoff spot, and they're locked into the play-in. So there is no game now where it's absolutely needed. Yes, it would be nice to have, but they seem to do better when they're backs against the wall, desperation. There's literally lose or go home. That's when they play their best. Playoffs, play-in. I mean, even last year they lost the first play-in game, second game, when it was like, oh crap, we're going to go home. Then that sparked their big run. So that's why I caution having this expectation against the Knicks and 76ers that he's going to drop like 30 or 28. But more so look to see, is he cutting off ball? Is he jumping into passing lanes? Is he doing that type of stuff? Is he doing some of the more hard work and like energy type things that energize other people? So don't just look at his stat sheet, is basically what I'm saying. More so look at how he's approaching the game. Is he getting to the free throw line? Is he jumping in the passing lanes? Is he doing stuff like that? It makes a little difference over a period of time. Because, I mean, we know he can drop 30 if he wanted to. But it's doing those other things that energize others for them to elevate their level of play as well.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nose. What was it, nail on the nose, whatever the saying is. Like when he's active on the defensive end, outside of playing free safety and the deflections, playing the passing lanes, like that's great. But then when you see him try, and it doesn't have to be multiple times, it could be even just one time where you see him lock up a defender or a offensive player one time, like a Kawhi or Paul George or anybody like a prime Marcus Smart, even like to a certain degree, where they lock in and he's like, I'm getting the ball from this dude. Like he's not going anywhere. Like even Kobe style, the way he would lock people up, that tenacity. And when you see him like into the game on the defensive end, where he's like, I'm not going to let this guy get by me. I'm going to beat him the spot. I'm going to strip him. That's when you know Jimmy's awake. To your point, when he's getting to the free throw line, when he has lift on his shot, right? You could see like when he's taking these jumpers and he's jumping up high, that he's healthy and engaged. But I think we haven't seen him that active on the defensive end since the first Pelicans game where he got ejected, from my memory, because I watch every game, but I'm getting old, so I can't remember every game. They kind of blend in together. But I just remember in that Pelicans game when he got ejected in the fourth quarter and had 20 something points going into that quarter. There was a play, and I don't remember who the young guys were. It wasn't Herb Jones, it was someone else, but he stole the ball from one of those players, but the loose ball went to another Pelicans teammate, and then he guarded that guy on the same play and stripped him.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then he turned that into a fast break, like transition play, which the Heat are not the best at, and got a bucket on the other end. And I'm like, oh, Jimmy's locked in right now. Like he's hyped up. This is before the whole ejection drama, all that stuff with Najee Harris. So
yeah, I mean, he can still lock anyone up on defense. He is still an all-world defender. And I mean, there'll be plays where you're like, wow, that's just incredible. But it's not as consistent as, if we're nitpicking, I would like. And I want to make something clear. I'm not hating on Jimmy. I'm not disappointed in Jimmy for saying, but I'm like one of the biggest Jimmy supporters and Jimmy fans, right? I defend him constantly. But if we are going to be objective, and we try our best sometimes to be objective, it is to say, is it quite to the level that your superstar should play at every time with the effort level, at least perceived effort level? Not exactly. It's not always what you're at for what you're looking for. There have been plenty of games where if he was just a little bit more active, a little bit more selfish, hunting for a shot and not kicking out for layups or just standing on the 3-point line, probably would have picked up a couple more W's over the course of the season. But that's in the past now. So it's like, it's all about prepping for the playoffs. And, if we get to the playoffs and he locks in and the Heat, make it to the conference finals, or even, shoot, we lose in 7 in the second round, or who knows what happens, but it's like they play better, he'll get another pass. So we kind of talked about this before we started recording. It's like, it's kind of hard to not go to the whole other end of like, oh, the regular season doesn't matter. But at the same time, it's hard not to go the whole other end of, wow, this team can't do anything. Because it's that weird, we need to trust past results, but also sometimes what you're seeing isn't really giving you that trust in those past results of like, is that really going to happen again? And who knows? But it's the answer is in the middle, right? It's like, all right, we know the pattern, right? They play a lot better in the regular season, or sorry, they play a lot better in the postseason, specifically Jimmy. Something about that environment he absolutely thrives in. Then the regular season comes around, and it's not as, maybe it's just not as physical, it's not as emotional, it's not as desperate. And a lot of these guys thrive on desperation. And part of me wonders, is it, like Jimmy's personality? Is it his upbringing? I mean, the guy has an incredible story of coming from a horrible situation, right? And like just fighting for everything has got, and he's earned the right. Shoot, he has earned the right to coast in the regular season based off his life and his play in the postseason. But does that make you confident he's going to continually do it and elevate to superstardom and best player in the world? That's kind of like the hard part. So as I'm making the point of it, you can see both sides. You can literally hear me arguing with myself about both sides. So it's like, I don't know. I can't give up on them. I can't give up on Jimmy. I can't give up on the team. I'm going to choose to trust them, even if what we see all the time doesn't give you that evidence. I guess that's the only way we can do it, right?
I guess so. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned though, like other players seem to be up more for the regular season. Other stars, we've talked about this, friends and I. Like, why is LeBron at age 39, like putting it out there every game? And he's playing for his legacy and all that stuff, and improving his win percentage in the finals and getting his fifth ring or whatever it is, or fifth ring, right? He has 4, right? So
Yeah, he has 5.
he has 5.
No, it'd be his 5th. Sorry.
It would be his 5th. Yeah, he has 4. So, I mean, we know he's playing for that. But at age 39, like he's averaging like 27 points per game. He's like missed only like 10 games and has dealt with injuries recently. Nothing crazy, but players like him, KD, who's had major injuries recently, he's older than Jimmy, obviously a more talented scorer than Jimmy is, obviously a bigger bag, but still, like he's putting it out there, scoring a ton. Steph Curry, older. These guys have all won. It's kind of interesting. You think that a guy like Jimmy Butler that has not won, the pinnacle for him is winning a championship. That's his ultimate goal. That he would try harder in longer stretches during the season, because he doesn't think the regular season is not important. He doesn't think that like we should be the 8th seed. Like the Heat were the 1 seed 2 years ago. If people don't remember, like we did go and shoot for the first seed. Like we did that, and like we didn't win a championship that year, unfortunately, but it was an easier path getting home court advantage in the East versus playing on the road every single game. But anyway, I agree with you. I think that I can't give up on Jimmy Butler yet for what he's done in the past, his resume, his experience, like just the fact that he's taken us to 2 championships in this build. I never thought that would happen, honestly. When we got Jimmy Butler, I didn't think of him as a Kawhi, a Steph, a KD, a LeBron, like a top 8 type of guy. I thought I was like, he's like a top 15, 20 guy. And he's elevated his game in these past 5 years, fifth season. But in those 4 years, I didn't think he was going to be a 1A. Like, I thought that was like one move plus we're going to do some other stuff. But he's a 1A in my opinion. And I don't know if he's a 1A now this season and next, but like in those first 4 years, he was a 1A. He's probably at a 1B now, I would say, unless we had Damian Lillard on our team. I think he would have technically still been our number 1. Dame would have been our number 2. Bam would have been our number 3. So I still think Jimmy could have been that guy, and he still can theoretically. Who knows how this postseason run will go? But I'm optimistic right now, and we have a few minutes left. But I mean, the biggest thing right now, I think, with this team, and we've been talking about this forever, and I hate using this excuse, is injuries. Like, outside of Jimmy load managing and not trying or carrying, like that's BS. He does carry. He's still averaging 22 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. It's not like he's averaging 16 points a game and 6 turnovers, like, and just like not trying like all the time. Like, I don't think that's the issue. So injuries have been a huge thing, obviously, as we know. And Tyler Hero, I don't know. We could talk about him for a few seconds, but the Miami Heat are the 4th most injured team in the NBA. And I think that's a big reason why we're fighting in the play-in right now, because Jimmy's missed 22. Tyler's missed almost going to be 40 games soon. And, a bunch of other players have missed 10 plus games, 15 plus games, etc. And if you look at those top 4 teams that are injured, I don't know the list on top of my head, but I know like Atlanta's one of them. They're the 10th seed. Memphis is one of them. They're like the 13th seed. Like, all the teams ahead of us are lottery teams or play-in, like the 9-10 play-in team. And that shows like how good this team could be or should be. And that's because of the depth. Like, if we didn't have this depth, because people talk a lot about our roster construction and how it's not the best, but I think on paper we're deeper and better than last year. And injuries have kind of derailed the season, but we're getting healthy at the right time. And I don't know. Let's end on your thoughts about Tyler Hero. Like, do you expect him to come back in the regular season? One, and or in playoffs in general. I would hope he would come back in the regular season if he is coming back to get some rust off and get his cardio back up. But just one, do you think he's coming back in general? And 2, how do you think he elevates this team in the playoffs this year? Because naturally he's going to come back as a 6th man, because we're going to probably just keep the continuity up with Duncan Robinson right now back in the lineup as the starter. So we have him, potentially Jaime, Kevin Love, and Caleb Martin coming off our bench. Let's assume Jovic still starts in the playoffs. Like, how scary does that sound? So what are your thoughts? And we'll end on that.
Yeah, I mean, do I think he's going to come back in the regular season? Let's start with there. Maybe I don't have like any information or anything. I'm just going to guess 3 or 4 games left. Yep. That's going to be my guess. Just to knock off some rust. I don't think he should start. I had said all year if he comes back, he should start. But my cutoff was 10 games. We're past that. He should not start. I think he should come off the bench. He should kind of be that main ball handler off the bench. And if he plays like he played right before he got hurt, like this past few games with Terry, when he was playing off ball and he was playing within the offense, I think that Tyler Hero, not saying he's going to play off ball, but that one that's willing to do whatever it takes to win and being efficient and not settling for mid-range shots. I think if he continues taking threes and getting to the rim, that opens up a lot more. I think that's the key to everything. If you get a healthy Tyler Hero that's playing efficiently, making his shots, playing within the offense and not hijacking it, I think this team could make the finals. Like, I'm not just saying that. Like, this team has all the pieces there. It's the same pieces as last year, but better, in my opinion. Kind of like what you're saying. I think on paper, this team's better. Now, some of the big question marks are like, is Jovic going to continue this improved play in a playoff setting? Who knows? If Duncan is not healthy, that's a massive one. Like you have to have at least Hero or Duncan. You have to have one of those two playing really well, and making those threes and getting spacing. You have to have that, or it's going to be a nightmare, in my opinion. And it's not going to be remotely as good as it could be. Then Kevin Love, if he's able to come back and be that Kevin Love before injury, that's another huge thing. And opens up so much more for Bam and Jimmy and everyone else. So, do I think Hero is going to come back? Yes. Do I think he elevates this team to be a championship contender? 100%. I mean, they've been a championship contender without him, and for all that talk that they're better without him, that's just stupid. You want one of your third, fourth best players on the team. You're a better team with them. It might look a little different, might not be as smooth, but we see it at the end of the games when they need a pure bucket, they struggle. Well, Tyler Hero can get you a bucket. So, I mean, I think they would be championship contenders with Hero.
Yeah, he's definitely someone who could give us more firepower, especially coming off the bench. I like how you positioned it where it's like we need him or Duncan playing well because they're technically our shooting guards, if you will. And so I think I agree with you on that. One of those two, and I'm thinking between these two, because I never thought like a week ago, even just like a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, I was thinking like, I don't know if Jovic is gonna continue to be the starter. Like, even though he's a starter, like how many minutes is he playing a game? 22 minutes per game, like anywhere from 19 to 24 minutes, right? Like he's not playing 28, 32 minutes. So he's not that closer in a sense, but I wasn't sure he was going to be in the rotation, especially when Kevin Love came back. I thought we would put in a Haywood or most likely like a Caleb. Haywood definitely not 2 weeks ago, but now with his like surge with his 3-point shooting, he's like 13 of his last like 21 or 22. He's been playing great. And I just wasn't sure he's going to be in the rotation. But if we position it that we need outside of our core four, big, like let's say our core three, let's call Terry, Jimmy, and Bam the core three now. We need Duncan and Tyler, one of them to be good during the playoffs consistently. And if they're not, one has to help each other. They have to help each other out. The other two are Kevin Love and Jovic. One has to be good between the two of them. And the other would be the wings. Caleb and Jaime are Swiss Army knives. I think in order for us to go far and make a run in the East, I think one of those guys needs to play good. And that's the benefit and blessing of this team is that we're so deep that we have guys in all these positions that can help us. Like we need Kevin Love back. Like that's one big thing right now. And we need Tyler Hero, right? Those are the two guys who've been out the longest now, and we need to reintegrate. But I agree with you. I think if Tyler comes back healthy, he's not going to need to play like he did when he started because he's not going to start. Like he was playing more of a catch and shoot off ball role, and the Heat were 4-0 in the last 4 games that they played before he got hurt. So they were starting to try to figure, they're trying to figure it out, and they kind of were, but he doesn't need to be that guy. He could be him. He could off the bench if he's playing off the bench with Caleb Martin and like a Jaime and Kevin Love, like he's going to be the facilitator. He's going to be the bucket getter. Like Caleb is going to be playing downhill, cutting with Jaime, and then Kevin Love's going to be spotting up, giving them the full court transition passes to Tyler. So we'll see, man. I'm optimistic, especially now because it does seem like we're getting healthy at the right time when we've been hurt the wrong time for the last few weeks. And we're coming down to the wire, and it's kind of exciting, even though we're not in a position that I want to be in at this point, but we are at least getting healthy in the closing time. It would have been better if we were healthy like 2 weeks ago, because then, we would have probably not lost a few of the games that we've lost, like against the Warriors or the Wizards or whatever. And we wouldn't be in this position. We might be in the 5th seed at this point, but it is what it is. So thank you so much, Major, for hopping on. We were shooting for 20 to 30 and we're at 34 minutes. So time always flies when you're having fun talking about the torturous Miami Heat basketball team. So thanks again, Major. I really appreciate you joining. And before we head off, do you want to let everybody in the audience know where they can find your work?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me on again. It's always a blast to talk the Heat, even whenever it's not going as much as we would like, it's not going as great like that. But you can find me at Twitter. That's where I do most of my stuff. It's just my name at Major_Passons. And then I do writing for 5 Reasons Sports Network. So 5 Reasons Sports Network, just go search for them on Twitter, and you'll find everything in there. I put all of my articles and videos in my highlights tab on Twitter. So that's really just my hub for everything. So if you're wanting to find more about me or my, optimistic Heat opinions, just find me at Twitter, shoot me a DM. We're always down to talk Miami Heat basketball.
Yes, sir. And hopefully, the next time you're assigned and scheduled to do a 5 Reasons Miami Heat post game show, they will finally win. Because what's your record? 0-4
Um,
you're scheduled to be on, and is that how before we hop off? How early before a game do you know you're going to be scheduled? Because you're what 0-4 now at this point, and I always
so
feel bad.
yeah, 0-4 when we actually do it, but I'm actually 0-5 when scheduled. One time there was a mishap and we didn't do the post game. So 0-5, and they're, by the way, the 5 worst losses of the season. So it's beautiful. Nothing like hopping on a live stream right after just a depressing buzzer beater or a depressing loss and trying to talk, oh, it's not too bad. You just can't do that, and you're just trying not to be miserable. But I know before game, like couple hours before the game. So there's some talk that we need to stop scheduling me or like make me last minute because this is a nightmare. I've been offered twice and had it turned it down, and they won both of those games. So I'm starting to think it actually is me. So
Let's see if the third time's the charm. So say, hey, Major, can you come talk like against tomorrow? When we play the Knicks, say no, 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 no. I'm really busy, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we win that game because it's a very important game. So maybe you turn that down. We'll see if the third time's the charm.
yeah,
But
depending on how bad this gets, I'm gonna refuse all playoff.
you are not allowed to go on for any playoff games because those games mean the most. So get it out of your system in the regular season.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again, man. Really appreciate the time. Hope you have a good
No,
one.
thank you.
All right, thanks.